Hi, I'm George. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm in Battersea Park in London with a fellow artist, Nelson. So we're both going to be painting the vista behind us. So one thing I really want to do is try and paint some of these beautiful autumn colours. The leaves, this really goldy red, and there's a lot of variety to the leaves. So I'm going to enjoy painting that. I also like this scene because there's a lot of reflection in the water, so I can paint some of that too. Maybe paint some of the birds swimming around as well. But anyway, I'm going to start painting, so if you're new, please subscribe to the channel and let's get into this painting. On my palette I've got titanium white, cadmium yellow, Naples yellow, pyrrole red, burnt umber, alizarin crimson, permanent green, manganese blue and ultramarine blue. Using my thinned down burnt umber paint and a fine brush, I sketch in the overall lines of the composition. I start with the horizon line, and then I've sketched that shape for the whole block of trees. I'm just grouping them together as one almost triangular shape. I then start to paint the lightest area of the painting, which is the sky. The mix that I use to paint the sky is a combination of my titanium white, ultramarine blue and my burnt umber. For the most colourful areas of the painting, such as the tree in the centre with the really golden yellow leaves and some of the other trees which have quite a red hue to them, I've applied the paint very thinly, almost as I would when painting a watercolour, using a thin wash to cover the area, and allowing the lightness of my panel to control the value of the paint, rather than adding white into the actual mix and then painting this to control the value. This way it allows you to paint with a lot more chroma. You can use some of those really pure yellows or reds, and even though they may be slightly too dark on the palette, if you apply the paint thinly by adding your medium and just with a small amount of this paint on your brush and then rubbing this into your canvas or panel, you can create a very vibrant glow to these areas. So when I can, especially in the early stages, I try and paint thinly, so it's easier to paint over the top, and also you can get this vibrancy that's very hard to obtain any other way, as if you add white, it will grey the paint down. I'm now painting in some of the darkest areas of the scene. I find it very helpful to have the full value spectrum on the painting as quickly as possible, as this will help me create that visual impression of how the whole painting and canvas is going to appear in regards to value and colour. So once I've got this dark area in and this light area in, it's easier for me to fit in the other sections of the painting in relation to the darkness or lightness of these areas. To make the dark mix, I don't have any black on my palette, so I'm using my permanent green and alizarin crimson, and sometimes I'll add a touch of my ultramarine blue to this mix as well. And with this you can create a really deep dark. The reason I don't have black on my painting is because there's a tendency to reach for black whenever you want to make any area of the painting darker, and what this will end up doing in most cases is making the painting quite dull and grey, and it will lose a lot of that vibrancy that you can get out of painting using just colourful pigments. So here I'm painting the reflection into the water, and even though the reflection does have a broad greeny brown colour, it will still pick up specific areas of the trees that it's reflecting. So for these areas I will add more of that particular colour, such as the big tree in the centre which has a goldy yellow to it. The reflection underneath this will also have some of that goldy yellow tone, although it will be slightly greyed down. I'm also mapping out the ripples, as with water you do get some of these really sharp transitions between the light areas of the water and the darker areas of the reflection. So I find it helpful to map these out rather than trying to paint wet paint over wet paint and creating a smudgy effect. One quite easy technique that I find helps create that effect of water is when you're applying the paint in the reflection, to drag the paint down vertically. The brush strokes are going from top to bottom, and then later you can add a few brush strokes just going across this, some areas of reflection going horizontally, and I find this helps create a realistic appearance to reflections in water. Another observation when painting reflections in water is that as the ripples get closer to the foreground, as they're getting lower down on the painting, the gap between the ripples and the light colour which is intercepting the ripples gets bigger. So the spaces between the ripples, as they get closer and closer to the foreground, the spaces get bigger. So as I paint the light area of water in the foreground, which is reflecting the sky, one thing to note is that I'm using a different mix to that which I use for the sky, as the water is slightly darker and greyer than the sky, just as the reflection of the trees is slightly darker and greyer than the colours in the trees. So here I'm painting a few birds into the scene. So something I always love to do is paint some little figures or animals or birds into the painting, and my studio mate always jokes with me that you can tell one of my plein air paintings by the little bird in the foreground. So I almost always paint birds into the painting if there's any water, and especially in Battersea Park you have such a variety of different birds. As you can probably see from looking at the video, there's just been so many different types of birds flying by on the water, so I feel like I really have to paint them in. And there's also something I really love about Battersea Park, is this park is right in the centre of London, but you still have such a big variety of wildlife. So I've just painted in two coots in the foreground part of water, angled in so that they lead the viewer's eye into the painting, as people tend to read paintings from left to right. And on the right hand side of the painting I've painted a small white bird into the dark area of the water, and I've chosen to position this bird facing in towards the centre of the painting. You don't want anything in the painting which is pointing the viewer off the edge of the painting, as you want to try and keep your viewer in the scene as much as possible. So I hope you enjoyed that video of me painting here in Battersea Park. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and also please subscribe to the channel because it really helps out the channel. As you can see, Nelson's still painting. Looks like it's going well, so I'll put a link to his Instagram in the description of this video as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.